Welcome back to the 2019 Star Trek Convention. I am Heather Ferris. We're here with Fred and Rocky, and we're going to talk about the next panel, which is a Brent Spiner panel.
He's such a big deal. He's a panel.
Yes, he is just one whole panel.
One guy, a panel.
Just him.
Just him.
And I actually think they did sort of a disfavor to him because he's so funny with other people. He really should be put with other people. It's just hilarious.
You know, his Picard impersonation is so good. It was so good.
But before we go into it, let's watch the panel.
You gotta watch it, yes.
Gotta watch the panel, and let's talk about it in the commentaries afterwards. So if you guys will, have fun with the panel and join us for the commentary after the panel.
This is in the house. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Brent Spiner!
That's my van. Thank you so much. Wherever I go, that van plays. It's amazing. Aren't you glad you came on Wednesday? Yeah! Me too! Okay, gotta go. That always works, doesn't it?
I thought you were going to sing with them. They brought it down to the vamp, and they were ready for you to...
I don't know the words to that vamp.
Next time.
Yeah, next time, guys.
Definitely.
Is this where I'm performing?
Make yourself comfortable.
Is this where I'm performing Saturday night?
On the stage.
On this stage?
Not on this chair.
No.
Yes.
Oh my,
Hey, are you psyched about him Saturday night? Yes.
Thank you.
It's only taken 15 years to get you to do that. How long have I been pestering you?
Well, it's even longer.
It's been
since I met you.
You finally broke down.
Exactly. Okay, I'm just getting the lay of the land, the feel
Make
of
yourself comfortable.
Yeah, it's a large space.
It's a great stage for you. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, right.
And actually, you're performing with members of the Nevada Pops Orchestra, right?
The Nevada Pops Orchestra. We couldn't get the whole orchestra here for...
Yeah, part of the orchestra.
Okay.
It's a budget.
Strings. We have the strings?
You should have at least a string.
I think we have a string. That's all we need. Johnny, for you older people in the audience, let me say it. For the younger ones, Jimmy. My new film's about to come out. No, I don't have a new film. What am I talking?
You have a new TV series, though, right?
I actually, for the first time in my life, I actually have 2 TV series.
You tell.
I mean, I'm saying that now. I haven't shot anything yet for the second one, and I've shot precious little for the first one. But it still counts, right? Yeah. Is there a monitor out there?
It's actually right down.
No, I mean, is there? Can they see me on a?
Oh yeah. There's 4 screens.
Yeah. Is that going to be happening during my singing engagement?
Yeah. Wow. I know, actually, we're turning off the cameras for that. We don't want to embarrass you.
Appreciate that. Because from the very back of this room, I look like a raisin on a couch right now.
You look like a well-preserved raisin. How great does he look, right? I can't get over that baby face just never goes away.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You know what? You look exactly as you look when
You look marvelous, darling.
No. You know what? You look better than when I first saw you.
Oh, well.
No, you really look... The first, when I met Adam...
They look terrible.
That was 30 years ago.
Can you believe it's 30 years? I mean, that's
Really?
insane. You know.
I mean,
That's
you
great.
looked horrible.
Awful.
But look at you now! You know, wouldn't it... It's like Benjamin Button. You're going in the other direction.
Right, I know.
Don't you wish we could all do that?
You and I share a passion for musical theater.
Yes.
I can't help it. Any musical theater fans out there?
Anybody hate musical theater out there? Yeah.
Well, you people forget it.
Yeah.
But seriously though, I mean, I'm a huge fan of it. You've got a theater background. That's why I'm so glad that you're, performing Saturday night. You've done a few things on Broadway,
I have.
but you want to just talk a little bit about that before we kind of get into the whole stuff?
You know what, and apropos of that, not to bring everybody down, but we lost a giant in the musical theater today, Hal Prince.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, who directed and produced some of the greatest shows ever on Broadway. I, unfortunately, was never lucky enough to work for him, but I did work for one of his partners in several of his shows, which was Stephen Sondheim. And that was one of the great experiences of my life.
I mean, actually, Sondheim is one of the great composers of modern musical theater.
Well, certainly the genius of our time. There are new guys coming up like Lin-Manuel and
Right.
others, but for when I was coming up in the theater, Sondheim was it. And he'll live forever.
Yeah, and I mean, but as a television and film actor, Broadway uses a lot of different muscles than what you do in
Yeah.
film and entertainment.
You know what I'm wondering? I mean, given that these huge, screens is this a good angle for me right now?
That's one of your good sides. Both sides are good sides.
I mean, I could be doing this the whole time, and I'm not ignoring you, Adam. It's just I think this is my better side.
That's okay.
So look, when I first met you, well, you know what? You look even better now than you did 10 minutes ago.
Can we just take just a minute and talk about the Independence Day films? Because I really love those movies. I also glad to see your character come back in the last film. It was kind of a great surprise, really.
It was for me too. But I keep coming back as previously dead characters, so it seems. And but Independence Day, I was thrilled to do it again. To be honest, the film did not land particularly well with audiences or critics or anything like that. But I had a great time doing it, and I love working with Roland Emmerich, who directs and the films, and the actors I got to hang with were just. It was fantastic to see those guys after 20 years and come back and do it again.
Was Dean as involved as he had been?
Not really. I don't know where Dean was there the first couple of days, and then he had other things to do because he was still working on Librarians at that point. I know the first time I heard about the movie was in his office that we were going to do it again. But I'd like to do one more Independence Day. And I heard
They were a big sequel, right?
it felt to me like we're coming back, but you never know. 20th Century Fox made those films, and Disney owns them now, and I just don't know what they're thinking about that, or if they're thinking about it at all. They have this other little space thing. What? Oh, Star Wars.
Tied up with that.
Yeah, but they've got that whole universe now to play with, and
With any luck.
with any luck. And with all of your the writing campaign you're all going to start, should happen.
All right, let's go through the dark mists of time and go back to, was it 1985, 1986? How did the whole casting thing for Data come about in the first place for you?
Well, I was I was in Los Angeles. I'd been in New York for several years working in the theater, and what happened?
Why were you in LA after being in the theater?
Well, initially I thought I need to go to LA because I'm now in my mid-30s, and at that time I was in my mid-30s.
Why are they laughing? It's horrible. Don't
I'm
laugh.
not trying to pull the wool over your eyes here. I'm a man deep into his 40s now. Anyway, So I thought, what I need to do now is live like an adult person, because I've been working in the theater and living in New York, and you don't make any money, or, you know, it's just for love that you do that. And so I got the opportunity to go to Hollywood with playing Seymour in Little Shop of Horrors. Yeah. My very good friend.
The stage Little Shop?
The stage
Yeah,
Little Shop,
right.
yeah. One of my great friends, Lee Wilkoff, created the role of Seymour. He's on the original cast album. He was sensational in the show. And while I was in New York, I got a call, would I be interested in playing the dentist in Little Shop in New York? And I said, sure. So I went in, I auditioned, and they said, well, we're going to use you at some point. We just don't know exactly when. And finally they called me and they said, well, instead of playing the dentist, would you want to play Seymour, and who was the lead in the show? But it's in the LA production. And I said, yeah, I'm sure. So I went to LA and I replaced my buddy Lee, who was on his way to London to do it. And I'm the second person who ever played Seymour in Little Shop, other than understudies. Thank you.
It's actually a fabulous score. Is that Mark Shane?
No, it's Mark Shane.
It's a great
no, it's not Mark Shane.
It's a great score.
Well, Howard Ashman and Alan Menken.
Ashman and Menken, yeah.
And
That was fun, I mean.
oh, it's a great score, and it's a great show to do, and so I actually closed the show in Los Angeles, but the last day of the last evening performance, a guy came to see the show, a casting director named Lynn Stallmaster, who at that time was the casting director, and he said, I want you to come in and see me tomorrow, and I went in, and all of a sudden I had two other jobs. I did an episode of Paper Chase television series, and I did a mini-series called Robert F. Kennedy and His Times, and I had a really nice part in that. And I thought, man, this is easy. And you just throw out your line and reel them in, you know? So I went to New York. I had one brief thing I had to finish there. I think I did, Sunday in the Park with George. But I just did it for, we had been off Broadway with it. And I went to New York. They had gotten it was going to go to Broadway. They invited me to go, and so I said, "Well, I've got to do this." I went back to New York. I said, "I'll do it for 4 months, but I want to go back to LA because things were happening there." Quick story about Sunday in the Park.
Was that Mandy
Patinkin and Bernadette Peters? Yeah.
Amazing score by Son Hun.
Brilliant score, and when we did it in the workshop, there's a great part in the show of a soldier who carries around a cardboard cutout of himself, and he thinks he's his brother, and it's a really funny part. When we did it off Broadway, Kelsey Grammer played that part, and he was brilliant in the part, sensational. But he got into a dispute of some sort with the writer-director of the show, James Lapine. They didn't get on, but they had a moment that just didn't work. And what? For what? It didn't what?
Don't worry about it.
Somebody's talking to me in the front. And then, okay, never mind. So anyway, if you think of something else, feel free. Kelsey was the only person in the show who was not invited to go to Broadway when we went to Broadway with it. And so the good part of that story is, while we were in rehearsal for the Broadway production, Kelsey was flown out to LA to audition for the role of Frasier in Cheers.
Which is great.
And had he been in Sunday in the Park with George on Broadway, who knows who would be Frasier? I mean, Kelsey, went on to make incredible success with
Careers
the role.
work in a circuitous manner anyway.
I think careers in general have a mind of their own. And it never ever occurred to me that I would be in science fiction, that the bulk of my career would be in science fiction projects. That was the last thing I imagined I would be doing. And my career had its own ideas. And
How did the data casting opportunity come about then?
well, so I had an agent in Los Angeles who was connected to my agent in New York, and he sent me up for, well, he called me, he said, hey, they got a new Star Trek coming, and the casting director, Junie Lowry, would like you to come in and audition. And I said, Star Trek? They're not going to be able to do another Star Trek. That's impossible.
Did you know Junie? Because she's a legend herself.
Junie?
Yeah.
No, I didn't know Junie at that point. Junie is one of the great casting directors too. She's phenomenal. And she's done so many tremendous projects. And so I went in and met her, and I read with her. It was just me and her. And she said, well, I think the guys, I think that they should see you. They need to meet you, the producers of the show. So I said, okay. And I went in to audition, and it was Rick and Bob Justman and Gene Roddenberry and Corey Allen, who was directing the pilot. And you remember, Corey Allen, who directed our pilot, by the way, was a wonderful actor. When he was young, he was an actor, became a director, but he's in the movie A Rebel Without a Cause. And if you've ever seen Rebel Without a Cause with James Dean and Natalie Wood, Corey's the guy who does the car chase, the car race, and gets his leather jacket stuck on the door, and his car goes over the cliff. But he was terrific, a wonderful guy. And so I read I was about to read for the first time for them, and they had said before I went in, make a choice because, Junie had said to me, make a choice because they don't know whether they want this character to be like a machine and very machine-like, or whether they wanted him to be more kind of like a person. And so I thought about it. I said, yeah, I don't think I want to play a robot. I make it more like a person. So I prepared my audition, and just before I went in, Junie came out of the room and she said, they think they'd like you to do it more like a robot, more like a machine. And I said, oh, I think I'm going to leave then. And she said, don't leave. And I said, well, that's what I prepared. And she said, well, stay here. Let me go in and talk to them. So she went in, she came out, and she said, well, you know what? They actually said they're not so sure. They might want you to read for Riker. And I said, Riker? I don't want to play Riker. So she went back in again, and then she came out and she said, okay, they said just tell him to come in and do whatever he prepared. So I did, and...
But you did have that interesting affectation. Data has a certain lilt, and the way he talks, that it has some kind of a...
Well, there is a style to it. There is he is a machine, and he is a learning machine. But I think I did not want to play him like this. I didn't think that would be, would have much longevity. I think I'd have been gone by the third episode. Please, don't make that guy come on the screen again. So,
he's an empathic, inquisitive machine, but
if you will.
yeah. So, did you killed the audition, or?
Well, I did okay, and then they had me back again 6 more times. Seriously. I had to audition again for Gene, and then I had to audition for the executives at Paramount several times.
That's painful.
Oh, it was awful. And because there were also 2 or 3 other guys they were considering at the same time. And I, of course, had to put them to death. And then finally, I remember Corey Allen called me and he said, I really, really like what you're doing with this. And I said, well, I have to be honest. I'm not sure I want to do this. And he said, well, nobody's offering it to you. I'm saying I like what you're doing. Okay. So I called my agent. I really didn't know if I wanted to do it. I was kind of scared of it because I thought, will I ever be able to do anything else? And I called my agent at the time, and I said, I'm not sure I want to do this. And he said, look, just do it. And if you hate doing the pilot, I can get you out of the series. We'll figure out something. So I said, all right. So I did it. And I thought, it's not going to run for more than a year anyway.
But this is the era of syndication. You don't know up front that the thing's going to have a 7-year lifespan, or
right? And they pre-sold it for the first year, so we knew it was going to have a full year. And I thought, this is perfect. I can pay off some of my bills, and then it will fail, and on I can go. And little did I know that 30-something years later, here I am.
If we didn't talk a little bit about each of your castmates, could you just say a word or two about each of them? Maybe you have some funny anecdotes about every one of them. But...
I don't know, do I?
Yes, you definitely do. Let's start with Jonathan.
Jonathan, well, Jonathan, this is an old story, but Jonathan, Jonathan, he's a big guy. Jonathan, I don't know if you realize this, but he is the largest of all of us on the screen. I mean, he's bigger than Dorn. He's a really big guy, and I didn't even realize how big he was until recently. And seriously, I saw a photo of him, and he had his arm around me, and again, I looked like a raisin in his arm. It was ridiculous how big he was. But he had this thing where he had that walk, where he kind of walks and red alert, But he was loud. He was the loudest of all of us too. It's hard to imagine watching the show that Jonathan was the worst behaved of all of us. I mean, he really was. He was like a big kid, and he was having fun, and then he'd play Riker, and he'd have to be serious, but he wasn't serious. But he would come down that horseshoe ramp from the bridge, from the back of the bridge, and he'd come walking down in that way now. And one time he came down, and I know he lost his balance, and he went right into the wall. And you know how when the Roadrunner runs into stuff and there's a cutout? It was literally a cutout of Jonathan in the wall. Yeah.
How about Sir Patrick Stewart?
What can I say? Say that you don't already know. I'm so happy to be back doing the show. It's called Star Trek Picard. If you ever say that title to anyone, you must say it like this: Star Trek Picard. Can you do that, Adam? Star Trek Picard. Yes.
We hear a bit of a culture shock because he's British, and he was maybe a little repressed at the very beginning, a kind of very tight, stoic English
Well, he
person.
come from the Royal Shakespeare, you see, and thought of himself as an actor.
So we were really bad. We were wild. And I know a lot of you have heard these stories before, but it's like Tony Bennett singing "I Left My Heart in San Francisco," isn't it? But he, did you want something else? So anyway, Patrick Patrick was he would let us misbehave. I mean, Jonathan was loud, and Denise was almost as loud as Jonathan, and I was having a good time. We were all having a good time, and we had a director who it was the episode actually where Denise met her fate, where Tasha Yar met the pool of Metamucil. And so somewhere in the middle of that being shot, the director said, he said, okay, look, we would go, he would say, all right, and we have, the sound guy would say, we have speed, and the camera operator would say, rolling, the clapboard would go, and we'd hear, and action, and well, for a long time, it was like we were wild and having a good time until they said, we have speed, and then we'd stop and we'd straighten up. But then after a while, it was like, we have speed, we're rolling would make us stop. And then after a while, it was the clapboard that would make us stop. And then finally, it was action, and we would stop and straighten up and do the scene. And so the director just couldn't handle it. And he was a professional. And he called Rick Berman, who was producing the show, and he said, I'm never coming back again. I'm never going to direct this show again. And he was a very good director. So Rick called us all, he sent word down here, everybody stop, I want you to come into the captain's ready room. I need to talk to you. So he came and he said, look, you guys gotta stop. You're too loud, you're really, this guy is a wonderful director. He says he's never coming back again. And so Patrick says, I'm appalled. There's never in my life at the Royal Shakespeare Company have I seen such unprofessionalism. And Denise said, gee, Patrick, I mean, we just want to have fun. And he went, fun? You think this is fun? This is work. We're here to work. And now Jonathan is crying. Because he's a very sensitive guy, no matter, he's had big guys off and on her. And so we were like, oh my God, this is really embarrassing. And I was just looking at the floor. Oh my gosh. And later on, a couple days later, maybe even that afternoon, frankly, we had this sequence where Patrick was the eulogy sequence for Tasha Yar. And Patrick was on top of this beautiful hill, this bucolic scene where he was going to give his eulogy. And he went up to the hill to see what it was like to stand up there. And I'm looking at the monitor, and all of a sudden Patrick starts whirling around and he goes, "The hills are..." Somehow, from that point on, he was just like us. Literally, he was as bad as we were from that point to the end of the series.
Well, that's wonderful, but the good news is this show just got better and better. Did you feel the tide turning a little bit when Michael Piller came on? I felt like there was kind of a sea change and the show really started getting really good.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I tell you what I think was the first indication of that we were going to be a better show. Was that, I mean, we had some episodes in the first season that were okay. Big Goodbye, I think, is a really good episode. We won the Peabody Award for Big Goodbye.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, but there were a lot of, the average wasn't so hot in the first season, and we were finding our way. Everybody was trying to find their characters, and the writers were trying to find the tone of the show. I mean, we started the first episode, Naked Now, was almost R-rated. I mean, things happened in that never happened again on the show because I think that Paramount came down on it and told Gene, you can't do that. And he thought he was going to do a more sophisticated show second time around. But they said, no, we want the family show. So So our first season wasn't so hot, but it was somewhere in the second season. I'll tell you what turned it for me was in the hiatus between the first year and the second year, I got a call from Rick Berman, and he said, "Hey, we've got somebody coming on the show next year as a semi-regular on the show who is a major movie star." And I went, "What?" He said, "Yeah, you won't believe it." And I said, "Who is it?" He said, "Well, try to guess." I said, "Well, give me a hint." And he said, "Jewish." And I said, "Well, it's got to be Judd Hirsch, right?" And I won't lie. And he says, "No, it's Whoopi Goldberg." And so I said, "Whoopi Goldberg is coming on the show?" Whoopi Goldberg was huge at that point.
Still is.
Yeah, still is, but I don't think she had won her Oscar even yet, but she was a big star at that point. She was starring in movies, and she'd done Color Purple by then. And thank you very much. When I directed Color Purple, I never thought E.T. would be in my future. Yeah. Anyway, so I thought, wow, Whoopi Goldberg's on the show? And in truth, I think that's when people, in general, when critics began to take us seriously. We had this major star on the show, because she had said to him, she had called him and said, "I want to be on the show." And he said, "Okay, we'll write you an episode." And she said, "No, I don't think you understand. I want to be on the show." So they built a set for her, and 10 Forward, was it 10 Forward? Yeah.
Beautiful.
That was the name of that room? Yeah. It's been a long time. Yeah, and so they built 10 Forward for Whoopi, and Guinan was a great character, really original character. She was sensational. And so I think that changed things a lot. We still did some lousy episodes in the second season, don't get me wrong. We did bad episodes in every season, but fewer and fewer as it went along. And as you say, when Michael Piller came on, the show kind of solidified, because Michael and Rick really gelled. They were really partners at that point, and really appreciated each other. And then Michael also had a wonderful way of mentoring young, really talented writers like Brandon Braga and Ron Moore and Joe Manosky and Ira Bear, and I mean all of those guys that
Who all went on to be showrunners of their brilliant storytellers and showrunners of their own.
right, and there were others too. I'm just not thinking of them at the moment, but he was a terrific guy, Michael Piller. He really was.
Forgive me, we're real tight on time. I want to have at least 10 minutes for questions from the audience. It's flashing by us. Just talk a little bit about the movies, and then you started doing films. I mean, that kind of transition from the classic cast over to the next gen cast.
Right.
You had some great movies. Any just quick thoughts about some of the films that you really enjoyed? And you became, did you write?
I co-wrote the story for Nemesis.
Yeah, great film. Great story, great film. You love it.
From your lips, I really like it.
You had you had Tom Hardy. I mean, it was...
Tom Hardy was fantastic. I think there are things that don't work about it, but in general, I think looking back, it's a more satisfying film than you remember. There was a lot of disappointment because, I think because the guy, Data, was killed, and but I like it better than, well, obviously, First Contact's our best film. There's just no way around it. Ron and Brandon wrote a great script. Jonathan really rose to the occasion, directed a wonderul movie. You know, Jonathan is a really skilled director. He's a very seasoned director. These days, if you see his name on an episode, you can be pretty sure that episode's going to be good.
He's directing Picard episodes.
He's directed some of the Picard episodes. He's a pro at this point. And I've worked for him both in the Star Trek world, and I did an episode of Librarians for him. And oh no, not Librarians, Leverage. Yeah. And I love working with Jonathan. Because he knows what he's doing.
Well, kind of full circle now. You're back to Star Trek television again, and we're all so excited about Picard, and to see Data return. I mean, for us, it's wonderful. How do you feel about that? It's great to be back, right? Did you think you were just done with the character? Or, I mean, it's so awesome that he's back. I mean, come on, we love Data. You have to love Data too. We're excited.
Hey, you know what? I mean, yes, I love Data. Of course I do. I mean, I'd be a fool not to, you know? I mean, Data's been very, very good to me. And, as has baseball. But as I've often said...
later, I mean, it's crazy.
You know, but as I've often said, you know, love is a very personal thing. And my relationship to the character is different than the audience's, because you didn't have to put on that makeup every day. No, but I'm delighted to be part of the show, and that's all I am, is a part of the show. And I just want to say that, just kind of make it semi-clear, because I don't want it to be too clear, that I'm not a regular on the show. Data did die at the end of Nemesis. But I am on the show. I mean, I do make appearances, and Data's story is a part of the thread of the show. And but I tell you what, the scripts are so good on this show. The writing is so great, and they've put together a really terrific cast. I mean, it's Patrick's show, and it's Picard's show. That's why they call it Star Trek. Exactly. And, but the players that they've assembled around him, to an actor, are really terrific. I think you're going to love this cast and love the whole thrust of the show.
We can't wait, and it's great to have you back.
Thank you.
It's great. Thank you so much.
Hi, Brent.
Hi.
Earlier, you were talking about your love of the cast and of Star Trek, and we all thought you were done, you know, back in 2002. But now you're back, and we are overjoyed. What would you say is your biggest reason for returning to Star Trek today?
Well, by the way, James Darren, ladies and gentlemen. Jimmy, thank you so much for, I'm honored. But not while I'm singing tonight, I mean, it's Saturday. So I'll tell you my biggest reason for coming back. Well, they asked me, and they were very nice about it. But also, well, there's a couple of more reasons. The pedigree of the writing staff was very difficult to say no to. I mean, with Alex Kurtzman and Akiva Goldsman, who won an Oscar for A Beautiful Mind, and showrunner Michael Chabon, who is a Pulitzer Prize-winning novelist, Pulitzer Prize for fiction. He's running this show and writing episodes. And I'm going to say, no, I don't think I'll work with you. There was that, and then there was, and then there's the fact that it was the opportunity to sit across from Patrick again, and you know, share that experience with him. And you know, Patrick and I are really, really good friends, and I just enjoy. I did little stuff on Blunt Talk with him that we had a really good time with, and I thought, yeah, I'd like to be there with Patrick, and also you guys, because I really think if it gotten into the wind that they had asked me to do it and I said no, you would not be coming to my show on Saturday night. But there you go.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, pleasure.
Yes, over there, please.
So I know that you all are like siblings, you and the fellow cast members. So
Yes.
I want to know what the absolute very first thing was that went through your mind when you heard that Patrick Stewart was going to be starring in a show called Star Trek Picard.
Well, first of all, we didn't know that's what the title was going to be. We were later informed. I actually had to ask him on the set one day. I said, "Have they got a title yet?" And he said, "Yes." It's Star Trek
Picard. He said, quite good, don't you think? I said, no, I kind of like Star Trek. Data. But you know what, it wasn't about data. The show's not about data. And so I said, yeah, I'm okay with that. That sounds good. When I first heard he was going to do a new show, I thought, wow. I thought the same thing you did. Wow, amazing. I never thought he would do this. And he never thought he would do it. But again, I think the creators of the show were so impressive that he thought, how can I not do this? These guys are great. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, I have a musical theater question.
Yeah.
I have heard that you might be interested in playing a certain Mad King in the Broadway blockbuster Hamilton. Is this true, and how can we help?
You know what? That is not true. Actually, I want to play Hamilton. Would you tell Lin-Manuel that I want to play Hamilton?
I absolutely will.
There's no way he'll cast me. But no, I saw Hamilton on Broadway with the original cast, and he was playing Hamilton. He was fantastic. What's the guy's name who was playing the king?
Jonathan Groff.
Yeah, Jonathan Groff, who was not the first, you know.
That was Brian Darcy.
Brian Darcy James, yeah.
Both guys are awesome.
Both of them are fantastic.
Yeah.
Jonathan Groff has a great show, Mindhunters. Now, is that it? Mindhunters? Mindhunters, right? But he was, every time he came out, he killed. The audience was slayed. But everybody was amazing. It's one of the greatest theatrical experiences ever. When I saw it, I was sitting on the third row. And that sounds good, except I was all the way on to the end. And my wife and my son were sitting next to me. And at intermission, my son said, "Oh, you know the scene where they were on the staircase?" And I went, "Wait, there's a staircase?" Because my angle was that. And even that, and I would say I missed a third of the stage, it was still the best thing I'd ever seen. It's that good. He's a genius, Lin-Manuel Miranda is fantastic.
Okay.
And should you ever see this online, Lynn, I call you Lynn? Mr. Miranda? I'd be happy to consider whatever you think of. Okay. Hi. Victor, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I was saying I was sick when I saw you in the trailer. It's awesome. I wanted to ask you,
Yeah.
how long did it take you to get back in the mindset of playing data again?
You know what? That's a really interesting. How long did it take me to get back in the mindset? Less time than it took me to get into the makeup. It really kind of came back. It really was sort of, when Patrick and I were sitting there looking at each other, it came back pretty quickly. But you know what the weirdest thing is? You know how I have a phone, an iPhone, that has face recognition? And when I put on the data makeup, it didn't recognize me. Seriously, it's so weird. And then I would go, this is crazy, it won't open. And I'm thinking because it knew it wasn't me, it was data. There you go. Thanks, Victor, good question.
But one more, unfortunately, we're just about out of time. Yes. Last question.
Hi.
Hi.
I was wondering, do you like working with the people on the set?
Everyone except Patrick. No, of course I up until this point, to be honest, I've only worked with Patrick on the set, and he can be nice, as long as he's been fed, has had sleep. He's very nice to work with. He's a very nice guy, actually. Yeah. Okay? Yeah. Sort of. Thanks.
Is that
It's LA.
It's LA.
Sort of LA. I'm in Santa Clarita, but it's at least it's an hour from LA.
Is that at the Santa Clarita Studios or?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, Santa Clarita.
unbelievable.
Yeah, and I'm doing another show. I told you about that, right? Did I mention the other show?
Which show?
I'm doing another show. I haven't started shooting yet. It's called. Did you ever watch Penny Dreadful? Well, there's a new Penny Dreadful. It's called Penny Dreadful: City of Angels, and I have a part on that show. It's a big ensemble, amazing actors, and it's really good. The script. I've read the first 4 scripts, and they're like, whoa, this is really good.
And when does it drop?
I don't know, because we haven't started shooting yet. We'll start shooting it in August, in late August, so.
We'll be looking for that.
Yeah.
Penny Dreadful City
of
Angels.
Yeah, it takes place in LA in 1938.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, do us a favor and keep acting because we love you.
I'm going to try. Thank you so much.
So that was the panel. That was Brent Spiner. That was an awesome panel. What did you guys think of it? Did you like it?
Nah.
No!
Yeah, he's horrible.
You don't have enough data to make a decision, right?
Yeah, it was insufficient. Insufficient data. Oh, goodness. No, it was awesome. Brent is the man. He's the bomb. I mean, let's just talk about Independence Day for a half second, okay? That's all you need to say about him, because awesome in those movies.
Oh, yeah,
But,
definitely.
yeah, he's so amazing.
I loved his honest appraisal of the Independence Day movies. You know, he said he enjoyed Independence Day 2 a lot, but he also conceded that, it didn't do as well with the critics and...
I liked it.
Yeah, you can't always listen to the critics.
And it wasn't any problem with his part in the movie, because his part's always great. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
But I just found it refreshing that he was willing to acknowledge some of the limitations. But that notwithstanding, he said that he was really looking forward to, playing the character again in
a third one would be awesome.
Yeah.
I'm like, third one? I'm in. Let's go.
Yeah.
I'm ready. Let's do it. I'll watch it in 3D.
Well, speaking of which, I'm glad he's coming back in Picard too. I'm so excited to see
And
him.
they're saying it actually is Data in it. That's what they're saying. The B4 version. But
Oh,
yeah, that's what I was saying.
okay.
There's been a lot of speculation about that because remember at the end of the last TNG movie, it seemed like B4 was starting to integrate.
Yeah, just a little bit. But it doesn't look like it was ever going to be the same though. I mean, that's what I was worried about. That was a heartbreaking movie for me because I loved Data so much. I couldn't. The thing where they have to sacrifice a major character to make a storyline work hurts. It really hurts. I mean, it makes a great story, but it hurts. So that was a real slow Band-Aid they pulled off on me. Because I love Data.
So how do you think they're going to bring him back for Picard then?
I have no idea.
Well.
Maybe there's Borg nanoprobes or something. I don't. How do you bring back an android from?
Well, he went to 7M9 so she could repair him and bring him back.
Exactly.
That'd be great. That's a new shop she opened up. The nanoprobe repair shop.
Exactly.
Well,
that sounds like a great way to go.
If I were to speculate, I think it's going to be. They're going to say that Data's memories were preserved and they were integrated into B4. Such that he essentially becomes Data again, because being an android, all his knowledge and experiences, could be downloaded, into another body essentially. In fact,
I hope they did a backup download then with him.
You would think they'd have a few of them, yeah.
Right, I'd hope so. At least an updated one.
Yeah.
Well, one of the limitations, I guess, is normally you don't have a spare android body. Remember, that was one of the things they talked about in Next Generation a lot, that other scientists were having trouble duplicating the positronic network. So in this case, they've got another android body, so I think that's probably what they're going to do.
I can only imagine, because it's like trying to put a PC into a Commodore 64, you know, the newer version of Data versus the older. I mean, how is that going to work?
Well,
These are wonderful questions that we may never get an answer to.
Well, in fact,
Data needs a system upgrade.
yes.
yeah, exactly. Data 2.0.
Data 2.0.
There you go.
Well, this reminds me of another story I read. Granted, novels and comic books aren't necessarily considered canon, but remember when the first J.J. Abrams Star Trek movie came out? There was a comic book that came out which was kind of like a prequel to it. And in that comic book, Data was Data again. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of the approach they took, that the B4 body with Data's memories had become integrated enough such that Data basically recovered his old memories and experiences, and that's how he came back.
Okay, cool. Now, what did you guys think about when they were talking about how Data got his job? Or I should say Brent Spiner got his job. Or I could just say Data.
Who's your data? Who's your data? Who's your data? We want the T-shirt.
Yes, definitely.
Who's your
We need
data?
That T-shirt. That would be so funny to walk around the convention next year. Who's your data?
Who's your data? People won't get it. They're like, "Who's your data?" I don't understand what's so funny about that.
Exactly.
They'll like go right over their head.
That might be funny though in itself.
I know, right? It's a great idea.
Yeah, I could see someone asking, "Do you mean who's your date? Who's your daddy?" Or,
Yeah. Did you spell that wrong?
did you use spell checker?
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't know that he had auditioned for the Little Shop of Horrors, especially the dentist. What a great role for him, the dentist. But he ended up getting the major role, Seymour, which I found very interesting.
I would love to have seen that. 'Cause
I would have too.
That would have been amazing.
That would have been.
I actually did Little Shop of Horrors in high school.
Yes.
I actually auditioned for the dentist.
Oh, yes.
Got it.
Nice.
And then the guy who was going to be something else came out of it, and I got shoved to Mr. Mushnick.
Oh, no.
It was a weird experience. High school is very awkward. But anyway,
The dentist would have been so much better.
I really enjoyed it because he was just, crazy, sadistic SOB. But everybody wants to do that, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So anyway, Brent Spiner as Seymour, that must be amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
There's another thing I've seen on Facebook recently. Someone's been reposting little clips of Data and Night Court. Do you guys remember?
Yeah, I've seen those Night Court clips come up. I had no idea he was even on that because I watched that
That's
Night Court.
hilarious,
And to
too.
see it, I was like, oh, this guy's got range.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's one of those guys, one of those actors that is phenomenal. You don't see enough of him because he's amazing. And, you just wish you could see more.
I agree.
See more. Oh, God.
Seymour.
Thank you. I'm leaving.
And I always thought it was funny too that Brent Spiner was saying that the last thing he imagined his career, the direction of his career going was in sci-fi.
Sci-fi.
Yeah.
It's a scary thought because, when you get in, the first iteration of Star Trek, you're typecast. That's it. George Takei is nobody else but Sulu, right?
Yeah.
Shatner was nobody else but some T.J. Hooker thing. But
Even in commercials, you even
Yeah.
see commercials where he plays Shatner.
it's like you become the one character and you're used as that one character. It's terrifying if you're an actor with a range like him, with Brent Spiner. Can you imagine a guy with that kind of skill and he can't use it?
Yeah.
It's like having a sports car that won't go over 25,
Yeah.
It drive you up the wall. Like, I want to open this baby up and, you
It's a
can't do anything.
travesty.
Yeah. So that's really scary for a guy of his skill.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think he did fine.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
he is great,
Yeah.
definitely,
Yeah.
for sure. And I thought it was funny too that they wanted him to read for Riker, and
I can't imagine that.
Yeah, he's like, I don't want to be Riker, and I'm so glad he wasn't Riker. But I thought that was funny.
That was hilarious, yeah.
And speaking of Riker, real quick, so we've been talking about Picard, and I guess they're coming back with Troy and Riker, and someone was saying, oh, it's not going to be Troy and Riker, it's going to be like Riker and Riker, right? Because they got married.
True.
Oh, okay.
Right? So
Yeah.
you can't be Troy and
Riker
Riker.
and Riker. That sounds like a spin-off show.
Riker.
Yeah. Once we've done the animated show, and once we've done the Picard show, Riker and Riker. That's
Riker.
next, right? Yeah,
I
that's
like
what's
that.
next.
Directed by Riker.
Directed by Yeah, that would be something.
Totally. And yeah, and then I thought it was funny too that he was talking about, like, you know, he's talking with his manager. His manager's like, oh, you know, I know you don't want to do it, just do it anyway.
Just like his manager, he didn't see it.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
manager doesn't see what I do.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, and then Brent's like, oh, I probably won't even be on for more than a year.
Yeah.
I just need to pay my bills. Let's just do this.
do
I'll
it,
pay my
yeah.
bills. You know,
The
it won't
things
last.
actors do, you have to really, you know, wonder about these actors, because
Yeah.
they're going all out to trying to get gigs and do things, and, you know, you gotta, you know, you have a little heart for them.
Well, plus that's part of the agent's job too, right?
Yeah.
To you know, keep looking out for.
But the
Yeah,
agent
future-
can only do so much.
True. I mean, the agent can, I guess, bring opportunities to the actor's attention, but.
You know what, though, the
actors,
Star Trek
yeah.
actors, you see them pop up and stuff, they've got great agents. The shows they see them pop in and out of, it's like, these are great people that are working with. They're setting them up in good gigs. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And what did you guys think about when he was talking about Whoopi Goldberg and everything?
I love Whoopi.
Yes, me
Oh,
too. I
man.
love Whoopi too.
Big movie star. It was Whoopi. Whoopi was huge. He's absolutely right. Whoopi was like the big deal back then.
And that was so cool that she was such a Star Trek fan.
I
She
love
wanted
that
to
about
be
her.
on it.
Because
I love it.
If I remember correctly, when she joined the series, wasn't that just a few years after her Sister Act had come out, which
Yeah, it was like
Kind-
right around the same time.
same time, yeah. So she
But she was huge.
exactly.
Yeah, Whoopi was a big deal. You don't understand how big she was if
Yeah.
you don't know about it.
Yeah.
I mean, she's just on The View now, but I mean, Whoopi is like, yeah,
It
one
was
of the biggest comedic actresses and comedians in
Right.
general. Yeah.
That was Sister Act with Ghost and everything.
Ghost, yeah, Ghost was a huge movie.
Huge,
Yeah,
huge.
exactly.
I'm so glad they brought her on for Star Trek too, because she just really made a 10 forward
She
something else.
brings a certain level, not that we didn't have enough class,
True.
but she brought so much more class to Star Trek. You have to love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with having her on it, plus Picard and everything, Patrick Stewart, I mean, you just had such talent on, and Brent Spiner, of
Yeah,
course,
right.
you know, you had such talent on there.
And the depth of Guinan's character, because you just don't know so much about this character, has experienced so much. It makes you wonder more about her character.
I hope they bring her back to
That would be
Picard.
sweet.
That would be
I want
That'd
to
be
see
sweet,
her on
yes.
Picard. That would
Whoopi,
be
we need more
awesome.
Whoopi. Yes,
Back!
it's okay.
It is. I will admit, I was a little bit uncertain of what to expect from Guinan when the character was introduced, because like we were just saying, you know, Whoopi had done a lot of comedic stuff, and I wasn't sure if she was going to maybe play it a little bit too silly.
And she didn't.
No,
Yeah.
no, and
Yeah.
and I think she kind of expanded her acting skills a little bit too, kind of playing something a little
That
bit
would
different.
not surprise me. That
Yeah.
would totally
Yeah.
not surprise me if she did get more expansion out of her capabilities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the biggest reason for coming back, I thought that was hilarious. Like, what was your biggest? One of the questions that was asked was, what was the biggest reason for coming back? And he's like, oh, they asked me. It was nice. They asked me nicely.
Ask me nicely, yeah.
Just like,
Another, you know, a look into the element that is the actor's mind, you know?
Yes,
It's like,
exactly.
they're just people.
Yes.
They asked me nice, okay, well, whatever. I can't wait.
I can't wait.
Yeah,
Nobody
either.
can wait.
Exactly.
And that's one of the best things about this week. I hope we get a little bit more info
Me too.
about Picard.
Yes.
I really hope so. They have at least a couple panels that are Picard panels, so we're getting those.
What was that joke that Brett made about him?
I was going to say Star Trek, Picard. You have to say it.
Yes,
Yeah.
He does Patrick Stewart so
Yeah.
much
Oh,
better than
yes.
Patrick Stewart. I mean, it's hilarious.
it is.
And you could just envision that. You can imagine it that as he's saying it, you know,
Yeah.
like Patrick Stewart saying, it's Star Trek.
You know what would be a funny contest is having them both sitting behind like a wall or something, and they're both reading
Is it
lines.
the real one or the other one?
Exactly. That would be a fascinating trivia.
And then you like pull the wall back and then you see who's sitting where.
Yeah, exactly.
That's hilarious.
And then too, I really liked him when he was talking about how when he's dressed up in Data, the facial recognition software on his
Phone can't see his face as he's Data.
Yeah,
Oh,
it doesn't
yeah.
recognize it. It won't open. And I'm sure with
That's
all
hilarious.
of that makeup on his hands, he can't exactly go and like start turning on
That's
his phone
probably,
and
yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Because he would
yeah.
have white makeup everywhere,
That's true.
right? So he would
That's
have
true.
to use the facial recognition to, oh, that's funny.
Modern day problems.
Yeah, modern day problems.
When your state-of-the-art artificial intelligent phone can't recognize your artificial intelligent character in full makeup.
Actually, that's a good sign. That means the facial recognition
That's
software works well.
It's taking it too literally. That doesn't look like him.
true. His skin is way off color.
I'm not going to let him answer the phone. He looks too pale. And what's up with those green eyes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally.
That was funny, yes.
That was. So that pretty much does it for all of my commentary for that panel. How about you guys? Is there anything that you want to add or anything that we haven't talked about?
Well, I think we've covered all the data there is to discuss.
Oh,
And we are leaving you on that pun.
that's great.
That is-
I don't have anything to add to that.
No, that's a good one.
No more data.
Oh, thank you guys so much for joining me. Thank you so much for doing these commentaries with me. You guys also, thank you for watching the panels. Thank you for joining us with these commentaries. And we look forward to bringing you day 2 of the Star Trek convention here pretty soon. So we will see you shortly. Thank you guys so much. Bye.
So long. Have a good night.